Welcome to the Freedom Chronicles.
Definitely an antisocial type.
Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We got a loudspeaker here, and when we go into battle, we play music very loud.
With a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Chronicles. I'm your host, Mike Imbasciani. Thank you for joining us. We are, of course, broadcasting from the Brian Chapman State Farm bunker right here in Southwest Florida. And like a good neighbor, Brian Chapman State Farm is there for all of the insurance needs that you have for your very own bunker. You can give his office a call at 941-625-9998 or visit the office at 2040 Tamiami Trail in Port Charlotte. And this show is also sponsored by the Local Meat Club by Tyrone and Marcella Jackson, based out of Columbus, Ohio. Go to localmeatclub.com using the affiliate link in the description of this video and use promo code FreedomCow, all caps, so that they know that we sent you. You can become a member to have access to locally raised, hormone-free freezer beef, pastured pork, and raw dairy products. Pick and choose from aged Angus ground beef, ribeye steaks, breakfast sausage, raw butter, raw milk, bacon, and even a family week's worth package that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can also pick up Tyrone's book, Life's Little Handbook, 7 Steps to Finding Success in Life, which explores some of life's most challenging questions. At just 54 pages, it's simple and straight to the point. Join the club and experience the difference that fresh, life-supporting food makes. Use the link in the description. Use promo code FreedomCow, all caps, in the description below, localmeatclub.com. With me, as always, Mr. Ken Lovejoy, and first time on the show, it's a pleasure to have him, comedian, host of the Chad Prather Show on Blaze TV, and great musician. It's Chad Prather.
Chad.
How are you,
Gentlemen,
sir?
I'm well. It's good to see both of you.
Thanks.
Too.
Thanks for coming on. Ken, how are you?
Awesome. Well, in fact, I've got my meat delivery should be showing up. I just got an email this morning, delivered tomorrow night.
Excellent. It's going to be good. We're going to have we need to have the taste test right here on the show, maybe next week.
I'll get the grill out.
Yeah, get the grill out.
Joe crack up the grill.
Exactly.
We'll get it going.
I want
some
to read
45
Tyrone's book.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Tyrone's book. 54 pages. I'm all about that.
Right? You can read it in the time that you eat one of the hot dogs.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So, Chad, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, there's a lot to learn about you, and you have your show, the Chad Prather Show on the Blaze, available on YouTube as well. I mean, kind of what started first? The musician, the conservative, the comedian? What kind of started with you?
You start out as just a wee child.
Yeah. In the realm of entertainment, it was as a very young child. I was on television for the first time when I was 3 years old, reciting a Bible story, David and Goliath, from a record that I used to listen to, and the local ministry TV network thing had me on doing those things every week. It was kind of interesting, but. Listen, I was an athlete. I was a baseball player. I played baseball because for me, that was entertainment. I loved playing in front of an audience, playing in front of a crowd, in front of fans. And, I was involved in theater, and I was always competitive even with theater. We used to do something in my hometown of Augusta, Georgia, called one-act play competitions that the local high schools would put on. And you would actually do a one-act play, and you'd compete against other schools. And so, you got to have a lot of confidence as an athlete to also be involved in theater, because your buddies are going to give you a hard time about that.
Yeah.
But I just love being on stage. I just always loved being on stage. I loved being in front of people, being able to communicate with them. I've always said that if I could get people to stand still or walk slow, that I'll talk to them. And I think that stems from being a hyperactive kid that grew up down in the woods in Georgia and not having any local friends and no outlet for that. Yeah. I'm a very social person. I've always said that, if they would stuff us and put us in a museum after we're dead, they'd probably put me in my natural habitat, and that would be the cocktail party, you know. So for me, I just like people. I like talking to people. I like making people laugh and entertaining people. And I've always said that if you could take enough things that you do with mediocrity and put them all together, it might be one quality show. So for me, I consider myself a mediocre comedian, a subpar musician, but I'm a great salesman. And
There you go.
I always tell people that I'm the least, I come from a family of musicians. My mother was a professional pianist, and out of a family of musicians, I'm probably the least musician of all of them. I come from a family of cowboys, but I'm the least cowboy of all of them. But I'm the only one that ever figured out how to make money. So I don't know. Maybe that's a pretty good trade-off in the grand scheme of things.
Sounds good.
But
Right.
You don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And so I'm 50 years old. I always tell people it took 42 years for me to really realize who I am. You read in the book of John, it talks about the John the Baptist was the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. And that always stood out to me, that he was a voice. He wasn't an echo. He wasn't saying what others were saying. And that means a lot to me, because I felt like I was echoing a lot of people. I was an imitation of mentors and father figures and things like that, people I respected. And I think it took about 42 years for me to come into my own and be comfortable in my own skin and just say, you know what, screw it. People are going to love you. People are going to hate you. And there's nothing you can do about that. And so I always wanted to be able to I always wanted to tell jokes, but then I know about 5 or 6 guitar chords. And I said, well, what if I can tell the joke with a guitar in my hand? And so it kind of evolved into its own little brand niche of comedy. And people seem to like it. They show up when we sell tickets. And so I'm not gonna knock it too hard.
Right.
No, it's a great show.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I've seen you've been to Vasani twice now, or 3 times.
Yeah.
And
I think
it's a great show every time. Yeah.
Dude, listen, and you guys being there in Port Charlotte and in that area, I mean, that's like a home away from home. I've been there a few times now, and every time I come, I stay for 4 or 5 days, and I love it. Getting to come in there and hang with you, Mike, and of course, be on Ken's show, and I follow both of you on social media, so I kind of feel like long lost brothers in that regard, and I love coming there. Right. It's great. Vasani are tremendous friends, and there's certain places, you go across the country, and I'm in a lot of cities every year. There's certain places you really just don't care if you go back. But I hope that they'll always have me back there at the Vasani. I hope I never do anything to screw them.
Nah, we love you there.
You're selling. So it's working out great. But it's nice to see that you're able. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we do have venues that they'll respond to my agent and say, Chad's values just do not fit the values of our establishment. And I'm like, you don't like money? I mean, it's not about blue or red. It's about green. I mean, you call yourself a free market capitalist. You run a venue based off of people coming and paying to sleep with somebody. Set your politics aside. Swallow it.
Yeah, exactly. And particularly if it's a comedy club.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all.
No, we had an email back then. My agent, he keeps me pretty well insulated from the rejection letters, which I could care less. But he said one the other day I thought was kind of hilarious. This was out of Wyoming, and a guy said that, and then at the bottom under his email signature, he put he, him. And then he had a link to why they use pronouns in their email signatures, and it sent you to an entire blog site about the importance of using pronouns. And I said, thank you, God, for making them reject me. I do not want to go to that. And in Wyoming, of all places. So who knows?
I mean, come on. Wyoming, you got less than 700,000 people in the entire state. You would think that you'd just show up at my place, please. I don't care what your politics are.
Yeah.
And not only that, Wyoming, you would think with as few people as they have there, that you could reasonably quickly identify what their pronouns are without needing a blog site.
Yeah, right. Oh, there's the state tranny.
were there when
man.
he was born. You know what he's got.
Exactly. So Chad, tell me, when you started doing the comedy, when did you start putting in more of the political conservative aspect of it? Obviously, growing up in Georgia, you're a proud American and you're Christian American. When did the politics start playing a bigger part for you?
For me, I went to the University of Georgia, and when I took off and went to school at the age of 18, I was immediately thrust into a world of political opinion, right? You sit in a college campus, sit in a college classroom, listen to a professor lecture, and you get that pretty quickly. I was raised with some pretty deep, strong Judeo-Christian values, very outspoken parents. They didn't put up with a lot of crap, and I knew what I believed in. I had wrestled with that myself at a very young age, and so I noticed that there was a lot of wild ideas, as there should be, right, and on a university setting. And so I began writing.
Free speech.
The problem that I had was I would read the campus newspaper, which is the Red and Black. That is the University of Georgia campus newspaper. I'd read the Red and Black, and it was largely void of conservative thought. It was all liberal, progressive talking points, and this was 1991. So I said I want to submit articles to the Red and Black, and they agreed. They let me do it, and so I became a regular contributor to the Red and Black, and it was. I'm gonna grab this toy from my dog before she starts squeaking it. It's So I became very outspoken on a lot of things that we're talking about right now. I was very outspoken in terms of life. I would address topics like the myth of overpopulation, all of these things that are talking points now, things that are still have kind of come to a head. I started addressing the advent of postmodernism and what that was going to look like in our world as we kind of changed from modernism to postmodernism. What existentialism and what that looks like. And so, I was kind of a precursor to my truth, your truth kind of thing, because I could see the handwriting on the wall. And the reason I could was because at the age of 18, I started traveling to other countries, and I just got a wild hair. And I said, I'd find a trip of somebody going to Africa or Central America, and I'd say, can I go with you guys? And they'd let me go. So I started seeing things around the world, and especially when you'd fly through Europe, I would see where Europe was, and I'd go, we're about 20 years from this reality in America. So I kind of could see the handwriting on the wall. Quite literally, it was on the wall in the airports with, topless models there in France. And so I said, this is where we're heading in America.
Yeah.
And that's where we've gotten to. So I was writing, all along I was that way. Well, when things took off for me in my early 40s and I began to have an actual platform, I said, okay, Chad, shut up. Don't get into politics. Be successful for once in your life. Ask God to send angels to lay flaming swords across your lips to keep you from saying dumb stuff. And just stay out of it. Just leave politics alone. Go out and be a funny guy. Everybody loves you. And just leave it alone. And then Hillary Clinton ran for president. And I could not stay silent. I think
that was the sign
like
from God telling you to not be silent.
Yeah. I think God tapped me on the shoulder and said, okay, go. Just go. And so I wasn't necessarily a Trump proponent. I mean, I tell people that when I got in the voting booth, there were two boxes. It was Hillary Clinton and not Hillary Clinton. And I voted not Hillary Clinton. And, I grew to love Donald Trump. I didn't understand Donald Trump, but, the die was cast at that point. If you remember back in 2015, when we voted in that presidential election, a lot of people didn't know they were doing something that was going to drastically polarize them from the rest of the planet. We were divided. I get that, but we didn't know that suddenly we were going to be ostracized and called Nazis and racists and homophobes and xenophobes and bigots and misogynists and everything.
We knew just how evil the other side was, right? But we knew how just evil the other side was with Hillary Clinton and all of the corruption that was behind her. And I think that election was the turning point where that started to come out more. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, it's just snowballed and been like, oh yeah, well, it's been corrupt for generations.
Oh, it
Yeah,
has.
I can remember, as a guy who at the time voted for George W. Bush. I remember the God, they crucified him publicly for everything, and now those of us on the right are crucifying him too. But it was funny
Deservedly so.
how you look at that and you're like, man, these people, nobody's ever going to be happy with anybody. But I think the 2016 when he took office, through the primaries of 15 and then the election of 2016, it was like, wow, we're a different country now. We're diametrically opposed. We've now entered into a Cold War with one another, and now this is the America we're living in. Where I think that as a Texan now for the last 21 years. I talked about it on Sarah Gonzalez's show the other day. Constitutionally, I think we're not patriots unless we're consistently talking about secession from the federal government. I think our founding fathers consistently talked about that and said that not only do we have a right to discuss it and should be discussing it, but we need to talk about abolishing the government from time to time. And now we're called seditious and traitorous for things like that. No, I think constitutionally, those are conversations we need to be having. And we're here now talking about conventions of states. We're talking about the 10th Amendment, which has never been truly utilized in America. We're realizing that the Constitution is basically null and void in terms of how our federal government is treating it. And so these are issues where, I just said, you know what, I can't stay silent anymore. Just this morning, someone said to me on Twitter, they said, you were a halfway decent entertainer. Now you're finished. You're ruined. Just sit back and watch. You're ruined for the rest of your life. You'll never do anything. And I'm like,
Wow.
well, you know what? Hell,
Really?
If you're finished, what are we?
that's the case, then pour fuel on the flame because I got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Right. Don't uncage me. Don't take me off the leash because that's going to be the worst thing you could possibly do. I live in a world where, look, I'm spread out so many different places. You could deplatform me, but it'd be hard to do. People can block me on social media, but I've diversified myself in so many different ways that it's going to be hard to escape my voice. And, I just say, bring it on in that regard because you're not going to shut me up at this point. This is a holy war for me.
I'm with you.
Exactly. And it has to become that. And at 316,000 subscribers on just the YouTube channel, I think you're doing all right.
How do you stay on YouTube?
Yeah.
What do you
that's
bribe somebody or?
Yeah. Knock on wood, Ken. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think some of it helps to be on Blaze. Honestly, I think some of it helps because they are such a big powerhouse and bring so much revenue to the entities like YouTube. But I don't know, man. I have managed to strategically skirt certain things. I know how to pick the right battles, I think. And I don't back off. I don't back off. On my show, there are certain phrases they've often encouraged us not to use. When you start talking about a certain medical procedure that everybody has been pushed to have in the last 2 years, there's certain things that they're kind of no-nos to talk about. I still talk about them. I still go at it. They're like, oh, YouTube's going to dock us. And we have been docked every now and then, but they let us come back. And I don't know. It's a weird thing, man. There's a lot of things that I've escaped. Not quite sure how I have, but there's a lot of things that I've escaped.
I have not been as lucky as
Ken now is
deep. They
off of Facebook.
They erased me off of Facebook about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago.
You got back on Twitter.
Got back on Twitter, but I went off mainly because I found it to be so negative.
Yeah.
So I was just hanging on Instagram.
And now
I'm back on Twitter because Instagram erased me last week.
Now, is it just like a 30-day thing or is it erased?
No, it's erased.
Oh, erased. No more memes.
No more memes.
It's okay.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Erased.
Yeah, because I do mention the medical procedure quite frequently.
Yes,
and how it has been it's to me I've been using the hashtag conspiracy to commit mass murder in just about every jab related entry that I see, and I think maybe that had something to do with it.
Just a little bit.
I got, I had a story that got pulled down on Instagram yesterday because there's a developing story in North Texas, north of Fort Worth, 46 men were arrested in the Fort Worth area, the South Lake area. Some were coaches, volunteer firemen, church pastors. 46 men were arrested because they were engaged in prostitution and with trafficked individuals there in South Lake. And so I put a thing on there. I know some people that are in that community, and they said, yeah, there were some of them as young as, teenagers. Now, again, that's not proven yet, but that's
Yeah.
the word on the street. And so I said, listen, if that's the case, chop them, lop them, and toss them. And so
Yeah.
Instagram pulled me down for that sentiment because, again, it was a threat of violence. It's interesting to me that Instagram read into what I was trying to say.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I was discussing castration, but at least some fact checker in there saw through my thinly veiled threat of violence.
Yes. Well, before we get to the music break, one more story I want to talk to you about is the question I asked you when you were on Lovejoy's radio show. Is you ran for governor of Texas against Greg Abbott in the primary, and I asked you what that experience opened your eyes to. So tell us why you wanted to run for governor, and then that whole experience and what you pulled from that.
I didn't know when I first stepped into that arena, I didn't think anybody was going to take it seriously, but they did. And of course, it was immediately a joke. A lot of people thought, oh, here's a comedian who's just trying to boost his popularity. But I just say once again, that is a terrible way to boost your popularity. It is terrible. I mean, I learned so much. You think you know something going into something. I learned so much. These guys are so bought and paid for. These politicians, especially at that level, if you don't have the right backing, the right donors, the right consultants, the right amount of money, and these people are slated. I can tell you when 2026 rolls around, the next governor election here, governor campaign here in Texas, I can already tell you who Greg Abbott has slated to replace him, and it's nobody that anybody's talking about. They're bought and paid for. It's scripted at this point. So for me, it was very frustrating because the average grassroots individual that cares about what's going on in their state and their community find it harder and harder, not even that, impossible to get involved. So I saw early on, I said, okay, I've declared to do this thing. I spent 19 months traveling a very large state, which is a country unto itself, 254 counties. The border alone is 1,220 some odd miles with Mexico. So traveling around for 19 months, maintaining a live show schedule to some degree, as well as 4 episodes a week on Blaze TV, I was exhausted. But I said, here's what I can do. I can educate people because there are people who simply don't know civics anymore. I can educate people about Texas. I can remind them why Texas is great in the first place, how we're no longer great. We've slipped into a purple abyss. And I can get people inspired again to love this state. And I think I was successful in that. So when the Riris come on Twitter and say, oh, you got 4th place and you only got whatever 4% of the vote, I say, yeah, but you have no idea how much I won in the process. It was an amazing thing. And thank God, my father, thank God for him. My late father, when I was in 8th grade playing football, I said, I'm done. I'm not finishing this season. And he said, you don't have to play next year, but you're going to finish this season. You're not going to quit. And so for me, there were so many times I wanted to quit that campaign, and I'm glad I hung in there through the whole thing. And it was very rewarding, at least to see my name on the primary ballot.
Yeah. Well, it's something to be proud of. And so thank you for wanting to do that. And it's putting your neck out there and trying to talk to the people.
Now, this is Abbott's last term. He terms out, right?
No, there's no term limits.
Oh.
There's no term limits in Texas.
You don't have term limits. Okay.
That'll be fun.
And that's that thing, because who knows what he'll do.
Yeah. Well, You know, I agree with you in watching him. Abbott always seemed to be the guy who waited to see what everybody else was going to do before he made a decision to do anything. He's one of those types of politicians who tends to govern by polls. And luckily he followed DeSantis.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
not like
rather than
Hochul
Gavin Newsom,
in New York too.
Yeah. What do you think? Did you see that tweet that, you know, I've never really been a fan of Abbott, but I thought that tweet he put out the other night about him being a better kicker than
Oh, and we
Dallas
have
Cowboys.
your response, Chad.
Oh, I
We can
didn't
put
see
that
that.
up on the
I didn't
screen,
see
I
that.
think. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Greg
I-
Abbott in a wheelchair would be
I
a better
missed that.
kicker.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I mean, honestly, I did think it was funny. But there's you see my
There it is.
response. I was drinking a little tequila, and
It's bound to happen.
can you secure the border, reduce state spending, get rid of property taxes, cut subsidies to Silicon Valley companies, and you see that lift the emergency mandates and keep the power on. A lot of people got pissed at me because they're saying, "Oh, well, it's just a joke," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, I mean, that guy's trying to do his job. Why don't you do your job?" I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's half a dozen missed field goals right there on the part of the governor of Texas.
Exactly. And they're busting on you for making fun of the governor when the governor was making fun of the kicker. So it's a joke on top of a joke. But
Exactly.
I mean, again, in anything funny, there's some truth involved here. And what you said is right. I mean, Abbott, there's a lot that he could have done, that he could be doing, that he isn't. And like a lot of Republican politicians, there's a lot of talking going on, but not a lot of actual doing.
Well, and what happened, Ken, is with people's response to that, they want to defend Greg Abbott, and that's an admirable quality in people to want to defend their governor. I'm glad that they're proud, but again, it also shows how ignorant we all are to some degree of what's truly going on around us.
Yes.
You can't point to a single city, not a single large metropolitan area in the state of Texas that is red. Not a single one. We call ourselves a red state. Not a single one of them voted red in any election since 2018. So it may be Tarrant County, Fort Worth might get close, but they even voted for Beto O'Rourke against Ted Cruz in 2018. So you say you have a conservative governor, but you don't have a single conservative city in what is supposedly and historically the most red state, conservative state in the union. I'm sorry, it just doesn't line up.
And no offense, you have a
You froze up. Can't say that again. No offense. Say that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a Republican governor, not a conservative governor in Texas.
Well, and not only that, our state representatives are the definition of rhino. They're horrible. Our state reps are terrible here in the state of Texas. There may be 2 or 3 men in the state house in Austin that I would trust as true conservatives, and even some of them are suspects. So it's terrible.
Oh, yeah. Things need to change. And I want to talk about some solutions and some other news. But first, before we do that, we're going to have a little music break. And folks, if you're enjoying this show, send us an email. You can email me, Mike Imbasciani1@gmail.com. Send us your comments, your questions, your concerns about Lovejoy. We all have concerns. And also you can find, and you can also find this show. Make sure you find the show on Rumble. Subscribe to the Rumble page. Find the show on CTA, Conservative Television of America, at CTVA.tv. Subscribe to us on YouTube and get our numbers up a little closer to Chad, so we can do it.
That'd be nice.
If Chad's going down the drain, what are we? We're already down there.
We're waiting for him.
We're waiting for him. And also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. And if you really enjoy the show, you can donate to the virtual bucket using real dollars with Venmo that the IRS has not yet taken a hold of. So we greatly appreciate it.
Just keep it under $600.
Exactly. $599.99. Anyway, so we're going to play. I have a Chad Prather song, Chad Prather and the Ragamuffins, and I got some questions about that band after the song. But before we do that, you can say I opened for you. So here's my band, Mike Imbasciani as Blues Rockers, with Born in Chicago.
Chicago in 1941. I was born in Chicago in 1941. I was 17 years old. Well, my best man right now, when I was 17 years old. There's one thing I can say about that boy, now we gotta go. Chicago. I was born in Chicago. I was born in Chicago. I was born in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois.
Now penicillin is killing what's left of our love. You were the sweetest thing in this little town. I used to come undone when you'd come around. Now I can really see you're as worthless as can be. I got over you when you got under hill. I got over you when you got under hill. Now our love is coming to an end. I'm a whole lot happier than I've ever been. I got over you when you got under hill. Why did you try to hide your running round? I should get my gun and put you in the ground. Now I'm a brand new man, girl, 'cause I don't give a damn. I got over you when you got under hill. I got over you when you got under hill. Now our love is coming to an end. I'm a whole lot happier than I've ever been. I got over you when you got under hill. Please, I got the disease that you're spreading all over town. I got over you when you got under hill. Now our love is coming to an end. I'm a whole lot happier than I've ever been. I got over you when you got under hill. I got over you when you got under hill. I got over you when you got under hill.
There you go, Chad Prather and the Ragamuffins. I got over you.
Yeah.
Little Biscuit cameo in there.
Oh, gotta have that.
Oh, so I love that. I
he's
got that's a country song right there.
I've always said, country music historically has always been about blue collar, hardworking people that really pull themselves up by the bootstraps. But you got to add a little cheating, drinking, and dying in there, and there's not enough of those three qualities in what they call country music anymore.
That's true.
Very true. Very true. And so you have the band, Chad Prather and the Ragamuffins, and you do shows with them. You have the other comedy tour coming up, right? Tell us about that quickly.
Yeah, so I was landed on an airplane coming in from somewhere about 6 months ago, and I texted my buddy Jesse Payton. Jesse's a comedian out of Houston, very funny. He's done the Vasani a few times there in Port Charlotte, and
he was there with you.
And I texted Jesse. He opened for me all through 21, and I said, "Man, let's grab a couple of guys and go out and work less and make more." And our buddies Dustin Sims and Zach Rushing. They'd done some shows together, and I said, see if they're open to doing it. So we put this thing together and decided to call it the Buck Wild Comedy Tour. Man, I'm not only the oldest guy on this tour, but I'm the choir boy on this thing. These guys, Zach Rushing is the epitome of uncensored. And of course, Dustin and Jesse are what they are. Of course, Zach's 6'5", weighs about 285 pounds. Ain't nobody going to shut him up anyway. So yeah, he's a big old boy. I mean, corn-fed country boy. So I said, here's the deal. I said, Jesse Payton, he has a hard time staying within his time limit. So let's make him do 30 minutes right up front. Then Dustin will do 30 minutes right after that. I said, I'll easily do 30 minutes as quick as possible. And I said, and then we'll tell Zach he's going to do 30 minutes, but I don't care if he goes 2 hours. We're going to leave. and
Right.
He can spend the rest of the night with those people. We'll be down the street at the bar. But the goal is everybody does 30 minutes. It's a 2-hour show. Every one of us have dealt with getting canceled, and so we just said we're going to put a show out there that we just don't give a rat's ass. We're going to say whatever we want to say. No topic is off limits, and so I've been promoting the show by trying to tell people not to come. Like, just don't do it. Don't do it. My mother's in Augusta, Georgia. She'll be 80 in July, and she doesn't get out of the house. And she said, are y'all going to do that show in Augusta? And I said, yeah, we're going to do it in May. And she said, well, I'm going to pray it doesn't happen. And I said, why? She goes, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I just know how y'all get, and it's embarrassing. And I was like, why? She goes, well, people are going to think things. I said, Mom, you're 80 years old. Every opinion about you has already been formed. No one is still out there forming opinions of you. They already know who you are and what they think of you. And they're not going to change their mind because they come to one of my shows. I said, so, suck it up, old lady.
I loved your ad on your show the other day that you said talked about your Joplin, Missouri show coming up. Basically, step over the needles, over all the garbage, and just come to the show.
Yeah, I mean, that sometimes we have to go to places, and it's not as I can give a hard time to a place like Joplin. Sometimes they stick us in the venues that you might have to go through a few districts to get over there to it. But I'm looking forward to it. Look, I've built a brand of comedy by making fun of everything. I make fun of myself more than anything else. And I grew up in the South. I like to joke that I got a cousin that got arrested for selling chicken salad sandwiches at a cockfight, because she didn't have a food permit. I mean, that's as country as it gets. So I make jokes about life and observational things. And for me, man, whenever somebody tells me they're offended by something, it's honest to God, it's like a pit bull getting a whiff of chicken's blood. I mean, I just can't get enough, man. I just go in for it. I'm like, come on, let's wrestle. And I don't know, it's a bad habit. I've always been the kind of person when it comes to humor. I've always prided myself in that, man, I can take you to the cliff and I can show you the edge, but I won't push you over. If you choose to jump over, that's your business. And we might have enough momentum when we get there, we can't stop. But But I usually know when to pull back. But it doesn't matter if somebody jumps over the cliff or their mind goes there. It's still my fault, and they're going to blame me. But I think, look, I think when it comes to humor, and I think it comes to comedy, we got to get back to, it's not a constitutional right to be able to tell jokes. Yeah, we have free speech. The government can't limit it. But, comedy is a subjective thing. Everybody has a different sense of humor. You jump on social media. And this, whoever had the idea that 8 billion people with different personalities could get on one place and share ideas without going at each other's throats was insane. But I've always said there's 2 places that you should expect to get challenged and a little bit offended every time you walk in the door. One is the comedy club, and the other is the church. And we've neutered both. Now our pastors have become self-help gurus and motivational coaches, and our comedians are, they use that big phrase. They like to say, "Oh, y'all like to punch down. You don't punch up." What the hell is that? My thing is, are people
when they go
laughing?
low, we go high.
I punch.
Yeah, that's so dumb.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I understand that rednecks like me aren't as intellectually superior as you New York comedians. But you know what? I'll think about that while I'm standing in line at the bank to deposit money. So, my thing is, if people are laughing, who cares? I listen, people say, "Oh, you make fun of Nancy Pelosi." My God, Nancy Pelosi deserves to be ridiculed. I mean, I want to see where her nipples are. I want to see where the surgeon put those nipples, because I know by looking at her face that her eyebrows aren't in the right spot. So I don't think
you really want to see the nipples.
I want to see them all.
Want to see them?
I want to see. I don't care if you're 100.
You heard it here, folks.
Skirt up to show them to me.
You heard it here, folks. Chad Prather wants to see Nancy Pelosi's
mental
nipples.
picture hurting my brain.
Yeah.
All right.
I saw her in that bathing suit from when she was on the shores of Italy back last summer on vacation, and those are aftermarket Moltons on an 82-year-old woman. I'm like, oh, mama.
Oh, mama.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our Patriot and Traitor portion of the show. And there's going to be another little end segment here after this. So hang around, folks. So, Chad, we'll start with you. Who is your Patriot of the week? Do you have a Patriot of the week?
Boy, that's a tough toss-up, but I'm going to go with my buddy Chad Robichaud. Chad Robichaud is he was a UFC. He was an MMA fighter. He was a featherweight champion. He was an eight-time deployed Force Recon Marine. He's a super great guy, and he's only 5'4", and he's made I think 8 trips to Ukraine now in the last year, working with refugees, people who are actually suffering. But not only that, he got 17,000 people out of Afghanistan whenever the withdrawal happened under the debacle with Joe Biden. And one of those was his top security clearance interpreters, who was a great patriot, but he was an Afghani. And that was his friend Aziz. And so his book came out this week, Saving Aziz. And Chad Robichaud, Robo, we call him, he is a beast of a man. He's a great person, great man of faith. He's a good friend. And I encourage everybody to get his book, Saving Aziz, that just came out this week. And it's a phenomenal read. It's like reading a true, almost divinely orchestrated Tom Clancy novel, except it's real life.
Wow. That's awesome.
Cool.
Well, very nice.
Check that out.
Very good.
Excellent.
Mine, my Patriot goes out to Jay Withy, who is the man who saved the 24 people by breaking into the school in upstate New York during the, quote, worst storm in a generation. He was just given Super Bowl tickets by his hometown team, the Buffalo Bills there. Of course, they're not going to be there, but it was very nice. And legendary former Bills running back Thurman Thomas personally delivered the surprise to Jay on Friday. So very nice to see Patriots get rewarded. He did the right thing. And he said he's even getting thank you letters from Australia. So he did the right thing, saved 24 people from freezing to death. And there's a Patriot in the community. Ken, who's your Patriot?
Now, this might surprise a lot of you who have heard what I've said about this individual over the last few years.
Oh, boy.
But my Patriot, after what he did yesterday, be the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
All right.
The way that he handled the reporters, the way that he handled Hack Jeffries when Hack was trying to bully him into putting Swallows Well and Shifty Schiff and the
Yes.
terrorist.
Oh, I believe
Omar.
we have a Chad tweet about Fang as well. But continue.
But anyway, just the way he handled it.
There it
I
is.
like, I hope that this is the Kevin McCarthy that we continue to see.
Yes, definitely. I agree.
I thought it was good the way that he stood up to them. I'm very happy that he got those 3 off. Swalwell in particular, this guy needs to have his clearance revoked. He doesn't need to be anywhere near an intel committee of any type.
Yeah, very true. Chad, who is your traitor of the week?
You know what? To Ken's point, and I think I got to go. It's a toss-up between Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff. Both of them, neither of them deserve to be on the janitorial committee, much less be in House Intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Swalwell, he and I have had a few altercations back and forth over the years. He's a garbage human being, and so is Adam Schiff. These are people who are 100%. I mean, they're not only morons, but they're morons with an agenda, and it's an evil agenda that's all about power. So to me, those guys are garbage. They don't not only need to be off the committee, they need to be out of Congress completely. And it's amazing to me that they're still there.
Yep, very true.
Yeah,
and hopefully some more change happens. Mine is part of the culture war that's happening here, and that everything, as Trump says, everything woke turns to you know what. It goes to Mindy Kaling and HBO Max here for the just atrocity that is the new Velma spinoff of it's now basically a woke Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo and Shaggy aren't even in it. And while only 4 episodes, there's the original gang. I mean, come on, there you go. And you have the original Velma, you have the live action Velma. Now, here are the characters. You got Fred, who they have as the white moron, essentially. You have Daphne, who is allegedly Asian. And then you have, what's his character's name? Pan down to the Shaggy lookalike here. Norville. And Scooby isn't even in the show. And there's the woke Mindy Kaling as Velma.
I think it's funny. Look how dark Velma is in this.
Yeah.
And look how light they chose to use for the picture of Mindy Kaling. If you look at pictures of Mindy Kaling over the years, it seems like they go out of their way to change the shade depending on who's printing the picture or what the story is behind it.
Exactly.
It's weird.
And it just to show you that nobody believes this woke garbage. While only 4 episodes of Velma have aired so far, the show has already racked up more than 41,000 one-star reviews. And on the flip side, it has earned a mere 1,688 10-star reviews. And that's 1,688 too many. So it just shows it fails and it's pathetic.
It's too bad.
Yeah,
because I loved her in The Office.
I know she's a funny actress, but they go woke and they go broke.
We did a piece on my show last week on this show, and I said, look, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. The pilot, my girlfriend, she kept coming in. She goes, "What the hell are you watching?" And I was like, I'm sitting in there eating a sandwich, watching a cartoon. And I said, this is terrible. I was doing it for work. It was terrible. I could not make it through the pilot episode. It was terrible.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Ken, quickly, who's your traitor?
Traitor of the week would have to be Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, just what he did, trying to dominate the stage when the speaker was McCarthy was getting his speaker gavel, and how he tried to bully McCarthy into accepting Schiff, Swalwell, and Ilhan Omar back on the Intel Committee. The guy's a hack. His name is very apropos. He's a hack. Yeah. And what did Dan Perkins was calling him Obama from Brooklyn this morning.
Yeah.
So this guy isn't going to work out because he's a radical, and that's all the left can cough up anymore is just people who hate the country, hate the Constitution, hate our freedoms, and hate the rule of law, and will do everything they can to subvert it. Hack Jeffries is that guy.
Exactly. Chad, we have about a minute and a half left. The last question I have for you is, one big thing we're doing on this show is solutions for this year and a way to be optimistic to the future. You have your comedy show where I think it was Bobby Sauce I heard say the easiest way to feed somebody the truth is when they're laughing and their mouth is open. I love that, and I think it's very true. What do you feel is a good solution that we're heading towards, and how can people help in their community in your eyes?
I think people are waking up to some of the bad ideologies that progressivism in this country has led to. Our cities have gone to garbage. Woke philosophy, by and large, is being frowned upon. We saw that in those reviews for Velma. I think we capitalize on that. We fill the void with a solution, and that is we start talking about ways to limit our government, limit the reach. We praise people like the Freedom Caucus who held Kevin McCarthy accountable, and we continue to educate ourselves and teach people to think with complexity of thought. And so that's where I'm at. Is let's sit back and say, okay, where are we wrong, and let's correct that.
Fantastic. Chad Prather, thank you for coming on the show. Buddy. You're welcome anytime, and we greatly appreciate it.
Love you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, man. And folks, don't forget, you can find the show all those different places. Go down in the link below for the local Meat Club affiliate link. Thank you for supporting this show. And go check out the Buck Wild Comedy Tour coming somewhere near you. Joplin, Missouri. Why not? Go check it out. And from the bunker, everybody, good night.
You're watching Conservative Television of America, working hard to stick socialism where the sun don't shine.